Welcome back to the Eric Krown Crypto channel. Wishing you a happy and healthy start to this nice rainy Thursday morning over here from Helsinki, Finland. A few things to be speaking about today. I want to follow up on that 20% historical signal that has been building up and when the likely resolution is. Hint, hint, probably early next week, maybe tomorrow, and how to kind of position for that, or at least not necessarily position for that because that would be financial advice, but at least what I'd be looking for in order to constitute a signal, historically speaking. Anyways, other than that, I do want to humbly request that if you do find this content valuable, the best way to get back, the easiest way to get back, the freest way to get back is simply like the video. And if you don't like that video, you can always just like it later as well. Other than that, let's jump into it right now. Waste no more time. I want to follow up on the signal right here and then talk about the implications of what to kind of expect in the next couple of days, and then what's essentially going to constitute signal firing off and then targets on top of that. And that of course is the daily stochastic versus volatility signal over here, of which I use BBWP for volatility, and this is simply just measuring the dispersion of returns and then putting it into a percentile format, of which anytime that we have seen it get down, especially to below 10 percentile, the expansion phase from those extreme lows has led to an average move of about 20%, with a great variance in the amount of days that it takes to kind of, play out that move. But, you could say about 10 to 14 days, let's say, on average. Anyways, we've seen several of these examples, even in the past couple of months. So if you've been on this channel, you're very familiar with this. If you're not, well, then you might have your chance to see the next one perhaps relatively soon. Anyways, of the last, if I can pull out over here, of the last 12 signals that we have seen, the stochastic momentum oscillator has got the correct direction on that initial volatility spike for 10 of the last 12 actually. And so what would first constitute a volatility spike over here? First and foremost, the BBWP needs to get a positive slope. Without that, there ain't no fucking signal. That's like the bare minimum. And then preferably it will be above the moving average on this, and then the moving average also preferably would have a positive slope. If you see all three of those, that's the fucking signal basically. If you see just one of those, just the BBWP, might be the signal. Could be, but preferably the more the merrier in this case. Anyways, the daily stochastic momentum oscillator, as we did identify over the past week or so since this signal became once again relevant, is still actually postured to the upside. Here's the thing though. The longer that this remains postured to the upside while price action essentially is, consolidating sideways, this very likely does end up, being a bearish signal. Again, I would not confirm it as a full-on bearish signal with major downside targets until we do see the BBWP spike up at minimum. But the longer that this goes on, the greater the likelihood is that, that it will be a downside resolution. Also, we're coming in to test basically the edge of the bearish control zone. So you would theoretically expect it to turn down here if it is, going to turn down from here. Somewhere around here would be about fair game. Anyways, the big thing about this is that we can actually forecast what price action we need to close below in order to force the daily stochastic momentum oscillator to the downside. It'd be 29,500. So keep your eyes on that area. Any sort of a daily closure below there, again, would put the probabilities in favor of a downside resolution, but still fully reliant on this taking up right here. Until that happens, there is no real signal. So that brings up the question, what would be the targets in the event of a downside signal? And also, would there be actually another way of getting this as well? There is. In fact, just looking at the range lows, which has been the same thing for the past couple weeks. 28.6, crazy, or 28.5 if you just want to round off right there. Anyways, yes, what was I just getting to? Yes, the targets. All right, so let's theorize that we see expansion from this level right here. 20% to the downside puts Bitcoin where? About $23,000. And again, this is an average, so it could be a little bit more, it could be a little bit less, but somewhere around there is fair game. And to the upside, we'd be looking at somewhere around $35,000, which also, again, is an average. Somewhere around there would be fair game. But to the upside actually does make a little bit more, the upside does have major confluence around that $35,000 region. Based off a few other things, namely if we go over, this is the wrong chart. Namely, if we go over here to CME's chart, go onto the daily, you will notice a nice CME gap coming in from 6th of May over here. That's basically at $35,000. And then also the 0.5 Fibonacci retracement from the high to the low of our, of our current major daily move comes in around about $35,000 as well, with very likely to stop around the way at the 382, which is 32.8. Basically 32,800. Anyways, my point with that is that, for right now, the longer that Bitcoin kind of stays around here sideways, flaccid, the more and more likely that actually will turn down, and that signal will probably be a downside signal. But the hopium still remains alive as long as this condition, again, is present over here, which the magical number is 29,500. Let me just double check that on another exchange. On the index, it's showing 29,663. That's because, Finex is always weird. So let's just go to GDEX and see what they say. 29,663 as well. So I'm going to be running with that. It should be consistent on all these. Again, whatever exchange that you're going to be looking at, you need to be consistent with. So if you are going to run it off this one, just you need to be looking at Finex, obviously. So it's all going to be consistent with each other. If you have the advanced stochastic oscillator from the store there, then it's going to be run off of that, basically. Just whatever exchange that you are using, be consistent with it. That's a general rule. Anyways, other than that, let's now go into the short-term timeframes and see if there's anything that is, suggestive of, some direction being a little more likely. In this case, full hour, we're literally right smack dab in the middle of this bitch. It's been a range play the whole last couple weeks. And the play has been sell close to 30, buy close to 29 or so. And that's been working, or maybe closer to like 28.6 or so. But ultimately, what did we see yesterday? We saw rejection right around the 618. We're seeing Bitcoin, catch a little bit of support right around the 382. That's 29.5 versus 30,000 bucks. So, that's kind of the short-term consolidation range. As far as bias goes, do we see anything as far as momentum oscillators? Full hour RSI, I'm not getting any, obvious hidden bearish divergence signals, which is what I'd like to see if I'm going to have a more strong downside bias in the short term. But we are kind of getting rejection around the neutral zone. Not really anything too crazy with that. What is interesting, however, is that full hour BBWP is very, very low. So we're looking for a move, soon here, perhaps today outside of the short-term range at least, I would say. And then full hour Joule is actually getting some downside signatures here as well. If we go reference stochastic momentum, let's see what the short-term timeframes say. If we can load them, there we go. Full hour turns down below about 29.3 here. 6 hour turns, I'm gonna guess down below about 29.8. 12 hour shows downside pressure below about 29.5. So a lot of things kind of pivoted around that mid $29,000 region, but we're not getting anything like super obvious here. So to me, that's a signal that is, it's best to kind of pull back in my own excitement and just be like, hey, wait for a range resolution. The other thing would be the funding rates, which have been hilariously good. Like, it's not that they're hilariously good. Like it obviously intuitively does make sense. But if you've been following the Twitter account, I've been having Elsa post, data from the Krown chain application here, which the funding rates especially have been pretty consistent in like getting the dave's direction correct more often than not. Something definitely worth back testing, which I'm actually working on. But in this case, the hourly is showing positive rates, so longs are paying shorts. A little bit more of a downside bias there. Again, not a death sense or anything like that, but, slight amount of downside bias, I suppose, just based off of that, if you really wanted to kind of cut through hairs. If you're looking at ranges, again, same thing as before. CME is the most obvious, above 31. I do consider that a range resolution, thus implying very likely the daily signal over here that we considered is probably going to play out to the upside if that does happen, meaning that, first stop somewhere around 32.5 to 33, and then very likely another leg up, again, somewhere around that gap fill at about 35. To the downside, anywhere below about 28.6, especially on a closing basis. First stop somewhere around about 27 to 27.5, but ultimately, somewhere down around first our current lows, and then probably that $23,000 number are going to be historically relevant. Other than that, should I talk about anything else? We're 8 minutes into this video. I can reference this over here. So there is one sort of consolation prize for the Bitcoin boo laws, even if things do turn down, and it's this chart, the 5-day volatility versus momentum chart. I won't go through the full rigmarole on this. I imagine most people, sticking until this time anyways, like you're familiar with this at any rate. And there is something significant that has happened in the last 24 hours since we got our last 5-day closure, which the level to turn the 5-day stochastic momentum oscillator to the upside has now shifted significantly down to 28,350. So, if and when this does cross, that is when the mean reversion play has been historically relevant. And the mean reversion play, as we measured out over here, which I won't do live because I don't see the need to do it like for the 10th billionth time, but the mean reversion play on average prints about 31.1%. And if we only include the downside moves, the mean reversion after that, which we just had a downside move, obviously, is about 38.12. So that would put Bitcoin respectively between about 33 to 35,000. So this will cross potentially as soon as next Tuesday, I think. Yeah, next Tuesday, something like that. So if and when we do see that, that would be the next good indication that, the low is in for now. We probably do see some upside from there. So could Bitcoin play out some downside in the interim? Yeah, definitely possible, certainly possible there. But ultimately, if assuming that this signal does probably happen on the next tick, or if it does happen on the next tick, I should say, then that would be a really, really good indication that, you know, it's time to be looking for a nice bounce somewhere probably around the mid 30s, as a lot of those signals do have good confluence around that region. Might even stretch for a little bit more, but do keep in mind that long term, I am still pretty fucking bearish as long as Bitcoin's in a downtrend, which remains the case as long as we're especially below about 52,000 bucks. So there's your nice and positive message of the day. I'm going to be signing off now. I should remind you that I've been trying to be a little more active on Instagram recently. We're going to be posting more stuff there on my personal Instagram. As I'm trying to, I don't know, just trying to do something a little bit new, something a little bit different, keep myself busy over here. And then also Bybit. Yep, we have a Bybit shill in the link in the description below as well. Understand, look, you don't need to fucking use this, especially if you're not like familiar with trading. I suggest you don't use it at all. But if you are familiar with trading, you already got your strategy set out for you. You've already done the back testing, all that, you know, very bland but necessary sort of process, then hey, that's there for you. Gives you a little bit of a bonus as well. And with that said, I think it's a good place for me to leave off. I'm gonna be back on tomorrow with another live stream analysis. Take care and see you hopefully soon.